Are we being tracked by our phones? Is our phone listening to us? How easy is it for someone to hack my computer or rob my e-bank?
How easy do you think it would be for you to hack the Thaiger.com?
God, that's a good question.
Gregory Pickett, cybersecurity specialist and the head of cybersecurity operations at Hellfire Security. Gregory specializes in protecting Fortune 100 companies from cybercrime and providing intrusion analysis that provides these multi-million-dollar companies with the proper security they need. In this podcast, we answer the questions that people often find themselves ponder. We also discuss hackers, intrusion analysis, and why it is important to have proper cybersecurity and procedures for your business. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing Gregory Pickett.
How easy is it to hack someone's computer or phone? I'm talking about like...
How much money do you have?
What do you mean?
I can just walk past your phone and hack it while I'm walking past you?
Over 75% of the people watching this video are not subscribed. Could you please take a moment to subscribe to the Thaiger podcast? It would really help us out. Gregory, what inspired you to pursue a career in cybersecurity, and how did your background in psychology influence your work in this field?
Someone might be a little disappointed, but psychology actually had nothing to do with my work in cybersecurity. It was me essentially avoiding my calling. I actually grew up like writing code, burning circuit boards, all the weird things that your neighbor might have done. You look at him and go, he's a weird kid.
Yeah.
But, obviously I made it back. I eventually made it back to IT, but I still pursued my own interests. The interest generally meant breaking things, breaking security. I was very non-compliant as a child, just ask my mother. And that meant doing things, that, they told me you can't do that. That doesn't do it that way. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. I can't, to make a point on that, I can't tell you how many times I've been told by developers, and it doesn't do that. And I would say, well, it does now. Yeah. Here it is, right? You had the screenshot. Yeah. Here's the video. So, yeah, it was doing that on my own quite a bit. And then when I was younger, obviously, it wasn't really a career. Breaking security. Being a hacker wasn't something that you had a flag and you raised it up and, yeah, this is what I do. But over time, it becomes something acceptable. And you're able to merge like the things that you're doing, like your hobby, the things that you're passionate about, into a career. And so I transitioned out of regular IT into cybersecurity.
What was it about psychology that made you realize, okay, this is not for me?
Well, they say, and I don't know who they is, but, you're attracted to psychology when you've got your own issues. And I can certainly say I had my own. And I think that psychology was something that then I kind of wanted to explore. Having that interest in my own issues, led to interest in issues overall and problems. But then you look at, well, how much does someone with a degree in psychology make? Not a lot. Okay. Not a lot. Mm-hmm. So it's like, well, I can't make a living, well, what was it? School counselor? Mm-hmm. Social worker.
Yeah.
Not high on the income list there. And so, yeah, and I was from there to accounting, minor in accounting, and then I'd get pulled into IT stuff. Okay. Constantly. And again, with the money, I said, well, if I'm doing your IT for it, I might as well make that same paycheck. So I transitioned to IT full-time.
So what was your first job in IT when you started off? Because, at that time, obviously IT wasn't as developed as well as what we know now. So what were you doing when you started off?
Well, the people who would find out I could do these things were the managers generally in my department, and they would have me do complex things like access databases. So it would be setting that thing up and making it do all sorts of, backflips and, somersaults and things that you would need a developer normally to do. Mm-hmm. The coding that I did growing up came in handy. That's what I would end up doing, and then I started actually doing some teaching on the side and did that full time.
What kind of companies were you working for?
So when I was really serious, I think it would probably be best in cybersecurity. Like a Fortune 100. I'm going to tell a little story about that.
Okay.
So maybe I won't tell. I mean, if you do enough digging, you know who it is.
Okay.
But I went from there into the Federal Home Loan Bank system, which is essentially a set of banks that were set up to, obviously, as you can imagine from the name, loan money to people to buy houses. And so the first jump, right, from standard IT, like support issues, doing things like access databases for people, was there as a security administrator setting up, you need access to this, here you go. We need to audit the access. Okay, this is all the people that are in it, should be in it. You've got all the signed paperwork. And then from there to do an intrusion analysis for that Fortune 100. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm not going to mention the name because you can find out on your own. Yeah. Not in a podcast. Mm-hmm. So, so all the things that I was doing, on my own, the things that, were just becoming cool, mm-hmm. right? That really, found its way into my interviews. It found its way into the things I was doing at work. So it made it possible to jump to that Fortune 100, and that was doing the intrusion analysis. We were responsible for looking into the things, that went bump in the night, if you will. Over 120 different sites around the world. You name a country, you put a map on the dartboard. You're going to hit one of their sites, and that was the real transition there.
Okay. Could you share some of your experiences working in intrusion analysis for like Fortune 100 companies? Like, what were some of the challenges you faced, and how do you generally overcome them? So
with that particular role, it's a big company, and the bigger you get, the more politics, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll go back to the original how this whole thing started. This little dust up kerfuffle, your American slang, what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So someone had read an article in Time magazine, and according to the article, the company, this very large company, was the target of ongoing Chinese military operations, right, in the cyberspace. And they're like, whoa, that's the first time they had heard about it, first time anyone had heard about it. And so they had, actually me in particular, it was at that point in time hush-hush, very sensitive. They gave it specifically to me to do, in private, right? They didn't want anyone knowing about it. The chain of command did, but no one else did it. If this was going to be as big as it appeared to be, they wanted to be able to control ultimately how they got out and what was done for it or about it before it got out. So they gave it to me. I was the one that set up everything on their end. I was the first one to do this sort of work, looking into the events, possible intrusions on the network. I, got the team together, policies, procedures, all that sort of stuff. So how we basically did all that. So that I was basically the source of truth for everything. So have me do it and keep it in confidence. So I do that, and I start reporting. And I start reporting my findings. And these are things, there was nothing good that I found. What I mean by that is I didn't find anything that you really wanted to see.
Okay.
There was very short messages going up through DNS, which is how systems are found. Was it thetiger.com, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
Computers don't speak that. They, you basically give it to the browser. They all translate it to the names and goes from names to numbers, right? The IP addresses, if you're technically savvy to know what that is. Basically, it's a way to find a system. It's like an address of a building or a house. These messages were very short. They weren't human readable. They had something called a time to live of 1. That meant that anything and everything that saw that message was to forget it.
Oh.
It's the exact opposite of what you want. When you look up thetiger.com, you want the browser to remember it. Hopefully you keep going back.
Yeah.
Right? And again and again and again.
Ideally, that's the plan.
Yeah, so you want the browser to remember it for a while. You don't say, I don't want anything to remember that this name was asked for, requested. I don't want everyone to forget it immediately, right? So, so you have essentially what is a machine understandable message being told to be forgotten. On a regular basis, cyclical basis, basically pinging a couple IP addresses known to be exclusively used by the Chinese military, and in particular an APT group. I forgot the number.
I see.
And so I'm like, yeah, it's not good. I'm ringing, obviously I can't ring the alarm bells, but I'm like, this is all kinds of bad. And everything begins to shut down. All of my avenues, like I was then put under someone else's specific management. I was taken out of line from my manager, somebody else. It's getting hauled into a meeting room every day and told it was nothing. So politics kicked in. Everyone was basically trying to, there was a certain amount of expertise that they had, right? It was a team that was used to doing all of network and systems analysis. Basically, if you had a really deep problem, you sent it to this team. And I think that ultimately, because they didn't find it, they were very unhappy about that. They were no longer the experts in the room.
Yeah, so this guy's making us look bad.
Yeah. So I got so many weeks of me knocking down, this is not a big deal because of this. Like, what, really? Where have you seen that in this enterprise, in any enterprise, where it's in use as something that's normal? And they would never be able to come up with an answer. And I said, well, I can tell you in a very malicious way what it'd be used for over and over again. And so I fought every attempt for them to shut that thing down. And it was a long, difficult process with them. We finally got it taken care of. Now, it actually led me to lead the company because, you're trying to help people. You're trying to fix a problem that helps them, and you don't find people that are very receptive. So, yeah, that's actually what started me going out and starting we'll talk about, I guess, in a bit, Hellfire, because, it's help people who want to be helped in this situation. I did talk to them years later. It wasn't a year, I think it was about a year later, and it was an ally of mine, I thought was an ally at the time, who was kind of coaching me behind the scenes. And I asked him about the problem. I said, you guys finally get that removed? And he said, oh, you mean the problem that such and such team found? And I said, no, I found it, and it was, the political hit job was so complete that it was now, an understanding as it went out that they found it, the other team found it. So it's basically suppress it until, essentially, I was out of the way and they could take credit for it. It was pretty bad, the politics. I would say in any case, we have the technology. We have the people that can deploy it. It's getting out of the way of ourselves, to be honest about where we stand, what we need to do, and not worry about, how people are going to look in those cases. Just get rid of the problem.
Can I ask you, what is the one thing that companies in general overlook, but they shouldn't and need to focus more things on? Like, we can talk about maybe current times.
They need to work more about understanding the problem. I think that, and a lot of the answers to anything I might answer today is about understanding the problem.
And I think your difficulty might be to help people understand the problem, because I think for a lot of people who don't understand technology and cybersecurity, it might just go over their head, and then they don't want to admit maybe that they don't understand.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. I'm an analytical guy. I reverse engineer everything by my nature, which really upsets most people. My family, my friends. But yeah, so I will come across an answer, and it's not like I was trying to. But then trying to translate that to people who aren't looking that way or looking at those things. Yeah, and I have my own weaknesses, people being one of them, that I'm just not good with people at all. We all have our strengths. And so getting that over to that other domain is kind of difficult.
Working in this field, are you yourself constantly learning and updating your own knowledge base?
Yeah, because I was talking to someone here earlier about, the key part of all this hacking, about reverse engineering. You don't know everything. You have an idea based on relationships of how pieces in a machine, whether it's a company, between the different departments and their processes that stitch it all together, people and communicating and systems, you can get an idea of relationships. And, okay, that's talking to this and this is talking to that. But you don't necessarily know the message. You don't know the format it's in. You don't know the meaning. You don't know how it's being perceived and processed. And that's from a person or system perspective. And so you just kind of get a rough outline. what's going on, you know, and then it's Google, like everybody else, right? Well, okay, what does that stand for? Or how does that use? Or is there, you know, a short video I can watch? I'll watch, like, if it's a 10-minute video, I'm only watching maybe 30 seconds.
Okay.
But yeah, I have to fill those gaps in.
Do you, I know this might sound a little bit silly, but like, do you guys have your own, I don't know, like, society of hackers or society of people where you know, share information and learn new things? I'm like, oh, this kid from, I don't know, Idaho has done this thing, or I don't.
Yeah, I mean DEF CON.
Yeah.
Yeah. DEF CON, they call it Hacker Summer Camp.
Okay.
It's a big mix of hackers, corporate, you know, security types. I am now bridging both worlds, obviously. The government, military, they show up, but we have a game there called Spot the Fed.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of fun.
Nice.
And then there's a whole lot of other groups outside of that, like B-Sides. That was just at, I think, it wasn't a B-Sides event. It was Balkan. This was in Serbia.
Okay.
You know, I have a good friend of mine, and maybe, I don't know if it's a name drop. You wouldn't know the name, but Zaz, he's like this guy. He's this super smart guy. I mean, when I'm with him, I'm with any of these guys. When I go to these events, I'm like the dumb blonde in the room. I'm the dumb blonde of the MIT set.
Okay.
He's got like 2 PhDs from MIT.
Wow.
I mean, how do you compete with that? So that's where I go to feel stupid. But yeah, I mean, he hangs out with these great group of people. They have this event called Balkan. It's in Serbia. Yeah, we hang out at these kind of, I mean, not say underground events, but, you know, a lot of people all dressed in black, you know, just hardware everywhere, and just, you know, it's just lots of fun. I mean, you can find it. It's not like it's hidden or anything like that, but certainly, yeah.
And I know you're in both fields, and like, yes, you have the ability to hack, and you're like a hacker, but you also work in cybersecurity. Do you find that people are okay with that? I mean, I don't know if this question makes sense, as in, like, are hackers like, okay, we want to be hackers and we only do that, and then cybersecurity is like, okay, we do cybersecurity and we're only in that, but you're in the middle. Are people generally okay with that, or do you find that maybe some people are wary of you because, like, they don't want to, they'd be like, oh, okay, he's into security, I don't want to share my knowledge with him?
Oh, not at all. There's lots of people that jump in to cybersecurity because they learn about hackers and what they do, and there's actually kind of a bit of a difference. You know, I consider myself a gray hat, but what they generally learn about it is the black hat world, and you have to learn the limits of what you're going to do, and understand that there's a bigger mission. You know, I think certainly in the black hat side, it's more of ego. On the white hat hacker side, then it's going to be more about helping out. You know, that's just a perspective you have to have. I mean, when I fought at that company, you know, to get that problem recognized, that you know, they had 50 machines actually. They pulled, I heard later, they pulled malware off 50 systems, right? Obviously backdoors for the Chinese military. You know, it's gone. That's what was meant. You know, it was important. That stuff's gone. So you have to have that mindset, you know, as a white hat, and certainly I think that people who don't start from the hacker side, and there's not a lot of us that do, they may get motivated by it, but that's not where you start out. You understand the bigger mission, you know, and I think that's what it is. You know, the whole, you know, movie aspect of being a black hat and which they get from the movies, that sort of thing, is kind of an inspiration, you know, and I think that's important. I don't think they're afraid of it. It's just a way to get everyone excited and, you know, getting it done, getting us protected from those people.
I want to ask you a question. How easy do you think it would be for you to hack the Thaiger.com?
God, that's a good question. Here's the difference between, you know, standard cybersecurity and then hacking, right? I wouldn't necessarily look at the front door. Like, I wouldn't necessarily look at just the Thaiger.com. You know, this office makes a nice target. There's no reason why you wouldn't hit here and move laterally, right? Cleanup is also a problem, meaning that you might start out developing your site. So yeah, you know, you get on someone's laptop here because I'm pretty sure I haven't taken a look into your lock, but I'm pretty sure I could pick it if you've got a physical lock up there. Because there's a common lock, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, that most Thai offices use, that I have. You can. I have picked in under about 30 seconds.
Wow.
So you come in here, you put something on a laptop, a work system here, and then you go back that direction. From the website perspective, though, you developed it, but you don't necessarily think of everything that you want to do. You have an idea that you're starting from, and then you build out from there.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing you've probably thought about doing is putting it behind something like Cloudflare, which is kind of a way to shield yourself from the rest of the world. Well, you'll do that later. So you can look up the history of the Thaiger.com and where it pointed to, say, 2 years ago. And it was a small idea. And it was on a system that you may have in the cloud someplace with your other systems. And you go look up that history, and I go target that. I don't target the current location, which ends up being routed through cloud for the big shield. I go find that system, and then I go find the system sitting next to it. And then I find out what's listening there, and, that should not be talking to me. And then I, basically look for those mistakes that people make and find exposure that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can take your traditional route.
In other words, yeah, you could hack into our system easily.
No, it's not like the movies. It takes time. It takes a lot of time.
Right, okay.
Planning,
effort, okay.
Yeah, and there's people that will do spear phishing.
Yeah.
Keep people. Don't open any attachments for me.
Okay.
I'm joking. I wouldn't do that to you.
Hopefully.
But that's what would happen. Someone would go to, spear phishing. Mm-hmm. And there's traditional stuff like, SQL injection. We're attempting to add your commands. Data normally goes into a request. You want to look up a topic.
Okay.
Right?
So it's not as simple as like in the movies, they'll just get a laptop out and be like, I'm in.
If they've done their legwork, if they've been working for the last 2 months toward finding a point of entry, there's a couple of point of entries I could show you right now that I spent months getting together, but I would type and it would look like I just got in today. Not exactly.
All right. Okay. Swiftly moving on to other topics. Let's talk about Hellfire Security. So you started your own company, Hellfire Security, after. Now, as the head of cybersecurity operations at Hellfire Security, what are some of the key objectives that you focus on in managing the company's security services?
It goes back to understanding your problem, right? What are you trying to do? And so, what is your problem? Let's say it's you're trying to detect an attack. Understanding that attack, having a use case then. And so it's really all about, first of all, if you're talking about our client side, making sure that they aren't using the defaults, right? That's meant for a generic person. You're not generic. You're very special. There's nothing else in the world like Thaiger, right? Not like Thaiger, not with these people, not with these systems. Toss out the defaults. Know what your problems are, what your your risks are based on the threats, and use cases. What do we want to find, right? What does that look like in our logs? Logs, right? That's what people will talk about when they want to protect themselves. What does that look like? Turning that into a signature, and we see this in our log, and we see that in our log. The big part is use cases. Like, what are we trying to do? And the foundation of that is understanding what your problem is. And then having that use case, presumably to solve that problem, right, for you. And then you use that, right, use case. You deploy it in whatever you have that's protecting your firewall, your intrusion prevention system, your endpoint protection. So, that's a big part of it. Just finding out use cases. What are you trying to do?
Mm. How does Hellfire Security work with clients to identify potential vulnerabilities? So do companies often approach you and say, hey, we're thinking of taking the next step in terms of cybersecurity? Or do you find yourself approaching companies being like, hey, I don't think you got good security. Maybe you want to upgrade it?
You try to.
Okay.
But they don't listen very well.
Most people don't want to admit it, do they?
No, it's still the people side of it, right?
Yeah.
It's not that they always assume that if there's a problem, it's because they made a mistake. But a mistake that is, I wouldn't say deliberate, but it's something that reflects, something that's lacking on their side, right? That's it's not necessarily the case. We're humans. They don't necessarily want to hear that. You kind of have to wait until they come to you, and that's where FUD comes from. Fear, You hear FUD so much. I'm not necessarily sure. This is where I might need Google again. Yeah. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt may be it.
Okay.
That's why a lot of salespeople in this industry try to dump the FUD on you. because you want you want to basically motivate them, get them thinking about things that might have gone wrong, kind of force them to come to you. Basically, you set the conditions for them to come to you, but you really do have to have them understand that they're going to need to check their assumptions. They assume they did everything right, and probably most things are right. But there's a few things that you're going to do that are wrong, and some of them are going to be pretty bad. And you want to find out what they are, right? And that's all about penetration testing. So that's really what you want to do to discover the most important things.
Okay.
And that's a key part of it. That's because it allows us to prioritize. You might have 10,000, 20,000 bugs, problems, vulnerabilities, however you want to describe it. There's only going to be a couple ones that are going to be your downfall. And penetration testing is going to help you find those.
And do you also develop strategies to reduce these companies like cyber risks?
I mean, that's it. I mean, the penetration testing is the way you want to do it. Yeah, because I mean, in a broader sense, you do want to do, talk about cyber hygiene. It might be a phrase that someone has used.
Cyber hygiene, wow.
Yeah, it's like, personal hygiene and there's cyber hygiene.
Okay.
It's a good idea for you to bathe every day and brush your teeth. And
that's a good way to explain it to someone. Like, why do you think why do you think cyber hygiene is important? Okay.
Well, you're doing an equivalent. So vulnerability management is a broader concept. Vulnerability scanning someone might do. They're just basically checking whether or not all of your software's up to date. It's hardened, basically, as all the gaps been closed up as tight as they possibly can. And one common one that's easy to understand is a service. Let's say it's a service like a web service that supports an admin console. Should it be responding to everyone, or just the part of the network that belongs to you, that belongs to your administrators? Let's shut that down. Is that shut down? And that's what the vulnerability scanner might do. Vulnerability management is more about enumerating that on a monthly basis, tracking your progress. If you have more than last month, you have less than last month, hopefully it's trending down, you've got less vulnerabilities. The preponderance of your vulnerabilities, are they high? Are they critical? Or are they medium and low? And is that trending up or down? And when you get all of that and you've got your progress and you have hopefully some task lists, right, that says I've got to do this, this, and this to hopefully, push your numbers, going that downward direction. And that's, cyber hygiene, keep making sure everything is managed to a degree. Vulnerability management, right, under control.
So I know you work with, quite established and big companies, but in general, how big does a company have to be to start considering proper cybersecurity? Or should everyone consider it? But most people, I'm thinking, don't care as much.
No, they don't care. I mean, it's about convenience first.
Okay.
Because the convenience they recognize now, the big blow up, they don't recognize it. It's not visceral. They can't get their hands or their heads around it until it happens. And that's why a lot of people end up coming to us. We either convince them ahead of time through FUD, or something happens.
And they're like, we need you now.
We need you now. A good story about that, which I think I can tell you coming up from one of the questions. They did give me the questions beforehand. It was last night, though. So them coming to us is a big thing, when something happens. But
okay. So here's a question for you. As a provider of cybersecurity, the consequences of failing are, in general, I guess, severe depending on the circumstance. Firstly, have you ever experienced a time that, maybe someone's, like, a mistake has been made or you couldn't find a solution for the problem?
Yeah, this is when you get on the corporate side, cybersecurity as a profession, as a means to help people. And all about risk. And you have risk acceptance, risk mitigation, risk transference. In that particular case, you try to mitigate the risk. You find some alternate solution. The problem can be offset at some degree. Risk transference, that's the rise of cyber insurance. If someone hacks me, then they can, you pay someone. You give them money, a little bit of money at a time. So if something really bad happens, then you're going to bail me out, right?
Okay.
That's the insurance. It's like when you wreck your car, you're going to bail me out, right? You're going to get me a new car. So yeah, and there's different ways to deal with it, and you just have to, because business is, and in life is about trade-offs.
Okay.
Yeah.
With cybersecurity and IT in general, is it very clear to understand when something works and something doesn't work? Like, maybe because of the numbers and stuff involved?
I would say no. I mean, from a cybersecurity perspective, cybersecurity, yeah, I've totally been at this a while here. With an intrusion in particular, it's difficult. Systems are extremely complex. When you talk about from the pen test side, you have an attack path that you want to take, but it's not the entirety of the system, but you believe it's the way to go in. It's not the only way to go in. There's a million other ways, but this is the one that you're going to focus on. From the defender's perspective, this is how they got in, but there's a million other ways they can get in. You may think you've seen them based on where you think they came in, but you don't know for sure you've gotten everything. You do your best, due diligence, right? We've thought of everything. We've done everything that we can, reasonably. You have to find a stopping point to where you feel that you've done everything that you could possibly do, everything that, that's practical to do. In other words, we've done everything we could do. We put our best into it. We've gone as far as we, believe. I wouldn't say that warrants, but after a certain point in time, with the law of diminishing returns, you have to be kind of happy with yourself that you've gotten as far as you could. You have to believe that you've gotten everything that immediately that you can think of. And I think it's the same case in any bit of IT. If you're putting together a solution for your customers, you hope you've anticipated all of their needs. You hope that you have accommodated any errors, because that's how hacking starts, is when there's an unhandled exception. The designer did not think of this possible input, did not think that the system would be put under this kind of stress, and they did not plan for it, and the thing just blows. And it may not be a security issue. It may not be someone attempting to get it to error and put it into a state that it can manipulate it from. It just could be, your customer can't order. Right? You're never going to get everything 100%. You just try to find a best approach for what you have for that moment and with your resources.
I have a quick segment where I just came up with some questions that I think you might be able to answer for me. Is it okay if I ask you?
Sure.
Here we go. Very easy stuff. So, am I being tracked by my phone?
Oh, definitely.
And I'll ask you because, for example, these are general terms that I think maybe anyone could understand.
Your phone's not sentient.
Yeah.
We don't want to put it that way.
Okay.
But certainly what's running on the phone is definitely tracking you.
Through the apps that are running on my phone, I can be tracked.
And through the network. You're paying cell towers.
Okay.
Even if your GPS is not on, they can pick out where you are based on your phone pinging different cell towers.
Okay. So I always get ads on my phone based on things that I spoke about earlier. So, for example, I'm talking to you now about cybersecurity. I would not be surprised if something about security came up on my phone later. Is my phone listening to me?
Well, that's a good story there to go with that one. Not me personally.
Okay.
But, so you may have heard of Siri. Not
Yes.
Siri. What was Siri? Alexa. Alexa's
Amazon
Amazon
Alexa,
one, right?
yeah.
So I despise those.
Okay.
Because I know they're recording it, and I know that they're analyzing it, and they want to sell us stuff, and other people want to do other things with the information, as better understand us for different reasons, not just to sell things to us. And
Marketing strategies, whatever it could be.
Well, it's when you start putting the tinfoil hat on, but after a while, if you're in this industry long enough, you understand that the tinfoil hat you should be wearing it. It's not as quite as crazy as you might think, but the things that you might think of. But there was an instance in which people were being emailed. I believe emailed recordings from things. The recordings, what was said when they were within, I think it's earshot of Amazon Alexa. Right, one of those echoes, and you're like, wait, how did it know? I mean, how did I get this? Right? How did it even know that I said that? Why did they know I said it? Why did I just get it? And I don't know what they said in particular it was, But I would presume it was something along the lines of diagnostic purposes. We were recording this. We want to analyze it. We want to figure out if Alexa's doing what she needs to be doing, if she is performing the way she needs to perform. I almost said behaving, like it's a living thing, but it does seem like it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, they use those words, right?
Yeah.
So is this only possible because somewhere in the terms and conditions, like term number 134, you accepted, and therefore we're okay. It's okay for us to do it.
Yeah, and speaking of Google, I'm going to go back and Google that incident to remember exactly, what they received and what the explanation was for that. But yeah, you're like, wait, so you're this recording this, and they're going to be processing it, and it's always going to be kept longer. So more is collected about you than you're told, other than some obscure hint in the terms of service. All this data is being kept longer than you're told, and it's being analyzed for a particular purpose, and it leaks all the time. I mean, with the Analytica problem with, was it Cambridge Analytica and Facebook? They actually they were so surprised that Cambridge Analytica had this information. I'm like, wait, that's your business model for them to have this information. And that gets fed to other companies. They get sold off. Gets fed to partners as part of the corporation. It gets sold to people to buy it outright in bulk. And it's all to know about you, what you like, what you're doing, what you're going to do next. Yeah.
Should we be worried about our own personal online security? Are there things that people definitely don't care about, but they should?
They care, but there's other things they care about more. Right? They do care about security, but they're more concerned about convenience. Don't bank from your phone. I know everyone is doing it. Can't you wait until you're home, right, to transfer that money? I've seen a commercial where they're sitting at a bus stop. You really want to be sending money from a bus stop? Maybe you want to do that at home. It's a little bit maybe better idea.
Well, I'll give you an example. I took a bike to work today. I took a Bolt. So yeah, I mean, I do think about it. It's funny that you said that, but I was like, you get off your bike, there's so many people around you. I'm taking out my phone, going to my bank, unlocking it in front of him, like within grabbing distance, for example, transferring him 30 baht, and I've already put in my password and everything. In a bad world, someone could take my phone and just run away with it and transfer 100K something before I could do anything about it. Yeah. People really don't care about that, though. I mean,
no.
I care about it, but I don't care about it enough to do something about it.
Yeah. That's the story of security with people. They do care about it, but not enough.
Why is it you think people don't care?
It goes back to, out of sight, out of mind, right? So the convenience right here, right now, they feel it, right? Oh, I got to wait until I get home. Oh, God, it's on your mind. It bothers you. I need to do it now. Or, I'm going to forget. All these sort of things are weighing on your mind now, not that someone's going to grab your phone. Because that happens to you. People grab things from you, but that happens so few times.
Yeah.
And things happen to you, and they're always far in the future, and it's hard to think about those or be worried about those sorts of things.
Okay. How easy is it to hack someone's computer or phone? I'm talking about like normal general computer with like just now I guess like say Mac or whatever. You got your fingerprint, or you just put in your password. I guess Mac Windows is general password. Like, is it easy to hack into people's phone? And
how much money do you have?
What do you mean?
Well, because you can buy a 0-day, a no-click. I can just walk past your phone and hack it while I'm walking past you.
Really?
Yeah.
No.
Yes, they have them. They're selling them. Pegasus. Was it Pegasus? I think Pegasus had is it the 0-click? I forget the name.
There's actually I was just like legit asking you. There's people. What?
I think it's called 0-click because you don't need any user interaction. Because your phone is lit up with this huge electromagnetic signature, all these different networks, Bluetooth, NFC, the 5G network now and 4G and whatnot. And the fact of the matter is it's out there, it's available to talk. It's got things that are listening, specifically to talk, AirDrop, that sort of thing. It's listening.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just the fact you've got a signal. You've got something sitting on that signal looking for an AirDrop. And so if you've got a bug, right, in that airdrop feature or the driver, which is essentially the bit of software that is the bridge between that electromagnetic system, right? The signal and receiving signals, and then the hardware that drives that and the rest of the system. You walk past someone, thing's listening, you just pop it. Remote code execution. You got something running on your phone now.
Oh no.
And yeah, because they would use, I believe, they use that to target things like diplomats and VIPs and that sort of thing. That's why it's how much money. Well, I mean, it's how much money you have, but I mean that's for both the attacker and for the person you're targeting. Because you got to buy it, and then you obviously want to use it on someone who's worthwhile.
But so, how expensive are we talking about? Like, it's $100,000. I mean, it sounds like it should be exclusive to.
It depends.
Government
I think Zero-Click might be
spies.
north of $1 million.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's like not everybody has that money.
No, but here's the thing: the intelligence agencies do, and
Yeah.
they use it like crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like spy level stuff, right?
Yeah, but you don't think
you need to do it to someone who's worth.
But they have a wide net.
Okay.
In my own country, NSA, they scoop up everybody. They don't target individuals. They scoop up everybody because their concept or their idea is, let's just get everybody, and then when we need them, we can go back and get it later.
Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was just in like movies and kind of stuff where they're just like, just.
No, they're gonna do like a fake app. They'll put an app, and despite how strict they are, and how and with the requirements of the apps, and how thorough they are, and making sure that they have legitimate apps in the app stores, they're taking them out 10, 20, 30, 100 at a time. Oh, these are bad. This is an app that's pretending to be a banking application. It's pretending to be a legitimate banking application. It's not games.
Yeah.
That aren't games, not really. The Trojan horses, so they're games, and they hack you. So entertain you and hack you at the same time.
Do you remember that app which was basically, you upload a picture of you or something, and then it shows you as a woman or as a bald person, and it turned out that like Russia or something's just collecting your pictures and information, and all these millions of people around the world have just given their information. Are those just more conspiracies, or is that actually true?
Those apps are pulling out. Speaking of banking, waiting to get home, that's how they're going to get someone like you. They're not going to do the zero-click. They're going to go ahead and just load a malicious application. It's generally going to be a Trojan. That's how you're going to avoid being identified. You're going to be a legitimate application to some degree, but you have other motives. The designers have other motives. And they pull those types of applications out of the App Store all the time. And some of I think what I hear most about are ones that target mobile banking applications, and they usually have the techniques because they reverse engineer the mobile application for the bank that you use, and they'll have 20 or 30 that they have in mind, and it's got then the techniques, the steps, and the various techniques to extract the banking information from those 20 or 30 mobile banking applications, and that's quite frequently what you see. Is you'll get a Trojan that's targeting specifically mobile banking application. I'm sure there are ones that do grabbing faces and things like that. But a lot of it, even crypto. People who are trading crypto over the mobile app. Yeah, they come up with Trojans specifically to target those types of users.
Wow. Okay.
You invite them in, basically, your attacker.
So how do we get people to be more aware of these cybersecurity issues? Obviously, with that one-click thing, I mean, yeah, I have to be important enough for someone to do that. But in general, is it like a lack of education or a lack of maybe awareness that these things are possible? Because I did not know until now that zero-click machine existed that could unlock my phone and get all the information by just walking past me. That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, and it's not their domain, so they can't necessarily conceive of that happening. Going back to me and other people, I have very strict with what I do and how I do it, and everyone just, I mean, it's not the way I talk, it's what I do, and they think I'm crazy, and I say, you have no idea the bad things I've done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't want those bad things done to me, and it's not me, but also the people, my peer group, and black hats, right? That I read about that I know can be done, right? because a lot of things I can't do, but I know someone else who can. And so I honestly don't want it to happen to me. But you're not living in that world, so you don't conceive of that. It's a bit like someone who may be working in an ER in a hospital. A car accident victims come in, you see that, it really sinks in. And you're more careful probably than the average person about driving. So, I mean, that's really what it is. It's just not your domain. You don't live in that world. You don't see what's possible.
All right, let's go back to my questions are done now. Let's go back more to cybersecurity in Thailand. Now, you've been here 11 years. Yeah. How did you end up coming to Thailand?
I get asked that question a lot. I started coming here because I wanted, to remove limitations. I'm a very driven person. I'm very self-reliant. I need to be self-reliant. I need to be, freedom of movement. And that includes things that are easy, right? Because you often limited by things that you find easy. You fall back to bad habits because it's easy, because it's comfortable. So coming here and spending a lot of time here, starting over. I don't even know the language. Having all of that removed and having to fight for things, and so including customers.
Okay. Yeah. Because Hellfire Security is actually based in Chicago, Illinois.
It is, right? Yeah.
And but you support customers from all over the world, including Thailand. You fly wherever you need to. What type of industries and issues do have you been investigating until now? Like the different types. Is it just businesses that are like Fortune 100, or like are there different industries as well that approach your services?
So banks, as you can imagine.
Okay, yeah, of course.
They, things happen to them. Lots of things happen to them. So we help them out. We do, digital banking, which is the corporate side of things, or the business banking, mobile banking, payment gateways, ATMs. I told you that little story about the ATMs there. Yeah. Very successful, that was. And then, point of sale. So, we that story, there's 4 ATMs. Mm-hmm. And all of them admin level access on those guys at point of sale. Yeah. Little handhelds that you think are so safe with your credit card. We took one of those out. So that, and then we also do, digital assets, exchanges, Web3 on the manufacturing side, IoT or Internet of Things. So lots of those where there's lots of industries where there's lots at stake.
Okay. Yeah. Is there anything in particular that you discovered about cybersecurity in Thailand? Would you say like the cybersecurity levels in Thailand are good, or maybe average?
So the things that we discovered in Thailand is that you don't use use cases.
You don't use cases.
They're not. You're supposed to have an idea in mind of what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, and then you're supposed to have a use case. What are we doing with this? What is its purpose? What problem is it solving? Okay. Specifically for us. Does not happen here. Use cases seem to be foreign. Okay. It's more lots of chasing after what's trending. When it comes to the solution, got to have AI, even though we don't have AI. We have machine learning, ML. So, but our product's got to have AI. So those sorts of things, or we have to have MDR or XDR, and so it's a lot of chase after trends. I kind of call it security by social media, because it is a lot of what happens here as far as the solutions you're deploying and how you're deploying it is very much about, what's that same dynamic. Yeah. What's everyone doing? What seems to be prevalent in the media or news you're learning through social media, and then you're concerned about that, and that's what you do. Okay. Yeah.
What are some common mistakes that Thai companies make when it comes to their security?
I would say common mistakes. There is a misconception here about what a penetration test is. Okay. What they think what penetration test is actually ends up being a vulnerability test, right? What they think a penetration test is essentially we want to go ahead and try to grab as much as possible, vulnerability side. We're gonna come in the door. Everyone's going to know about us. We're going to put our scanners down. We've gone to all these classes and learned about all these different attack techniques. We're just going to go through them one after the other. Just trying to get all of this. It doesn't matter how important it is. We're just trying to get all this stuff, and you kind of get buried in that. You end up being a step beyond, I mentioned before, the vulnerability scanner, which is essentially software that has all these known patches. It checks, do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? Is this listening? Is this listening? You end up being a human vulnerability scanner. So you're just checking the things that you know across the board, like the scanner would do. Mm-hmm. That's ultimately what they end up doing here, this vulnerability test.
Yeah.
And you get buried in essentially this noise, right? And so I would say, and they think that's a penetration test, and it's not. That's a vulnerability test. So the biggest mistake they make is thinking that and then going in and doing that vulnerability test instead of a genuine penetration test. And a genuine penetration test, have you ever seen the movie Ocean's 11?
Yes.
It's more like that.
Okay.
Right? Where we're going to use our instinct. Right? You want to run a genuine penetration test. You want to let the tester, in this case, someone who has the same mindset of a hacker, you want a white hat, right? It's going to follow that same process. You're going to use that instinct to find that point of entry. Mm-hmm. You're going to elevate your privileges. You're going to move laterally. It's going to be like that movie. It's multiple step. It's in stealth. You're quiet, because when you're quiet, you don't get caught.
Okay.
When you don't get caught, you go further. You have that goal orientation, and you get to the important things. You avoid all of that mess, all of that, basically things that aren't material. No one's ever going to use to enter your network. What's the point?
Well, it's interesting you said, stealth, because, often in movies you'll see, like, when a hacker gets into the system, do people get alerts on their system? Like, like red flashing light on their screen, hacker.
Me? When I'm there? No.
All right.
They have found me on occasion, but only because they were cheating. And they knew I was there, and they never actually see what I did that was important. They find traces of me, and the same thing for my team. They'll find traces of my team, right? But they don't actually find the exploitation. They don't
know what you did.
They don't know what I did until they get the report with the screenshots.
That was going to be a question as well. Like, is there actually a way that, people come in, they take whatever they want. It's like, even if so, is there a way that you can 100% remove your trace? And if not, is there a way for them to never find out what you were even there for?
I was just thinking about something. So when you do the vulnerability test here, as I do, and they'll call it a VAPT. There's no PT in it.
Okay.
You miss so much. And whether or not they'll ever find it, I think about that is because what we've been doing right now is we have an ongoing research project. And it's been going on for the last 6 months. It's probably going to be going on for the next few years, and we've been just starting to report on it in our blog. Just a few blog posts that talk about the background. And what we've been doing is finding things that people have missed here in Thailand. And as you can imagine, we've been focusing on the important things. Already, we found several key pieces of infrastructure here in Thailand that are exploitable by outsiders. In the telecom infrastructure here, there's been problems there. And also in public utilities and transportation here with team collaboration tools. Things still haven't been found because we ran across them. Some things are found and other things are not. You can't necessarily remove a trace entirely. I think in these cases, what ends up happening is you wait until things get rolled off. So they're going to tell you it's going to happen to you, or it's going to roll off and disappear, and you'll never know about it. Obviously, our job is to make sure you find out about it. So we do share these things with the companies. With telecom companies here, we've already begun sharing some of that stuff. I would close that today. We take the approach of open the door. Okay, that should not have opened. Look around a bit, close the door, and then we you need to fix that real bad. Okay. Like now, today, yesterday.
Can you tell me one misconception people have of hackers? Like, in a way, yes, hackers are cool, but for people who mostly don't understand, it's still kind of like, oh, you're a hacker, There's like negative connotations involved in looking at a person who has the ability to hack. But would you say that's a misconception?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how you look at it. I do know that there's an impression that there's just some tool we got that's doing it. What tool do you use? Whatever I need, because you've reverse engineered it. And you then go find the tool that you know is going to execute what it is. The tool is generally only there because either A, it's faster, or B, because it obviously speaks the protocol. If I need to speak to someone in Italian, I don't speak Italian. I need to find an Italian to speak it, and it can translate for me. So the tool is essentially going to be able to speak it, in binary and just do that exchange.
You were telling me earlier that you can even pick a lock. I mean, where do you learn that? Like, why?
Do you really want to know?
Yeah.
My dad will probably see this because I usually tell him when I'm making media appearances. But I've told this story, but not on film or on anything recorded. But pornography. Started with pornography.
Nice. As always.
Yes, my dad had pornography in a box.
Okay.
Can you imagine the box was locked?
Okay.
And yeah, I'm a young kid. I'm in high school. And yeah, it's you want to see some of that.
Okay.
So it had a lock, and I got 2 safety pins, and I must have seen a movie. I don't remember how it started.
Did you know what you were doing, or you're just trying your best? Trial and error.
It's weird because now that I think about it, I seem to know what I was doing, because I had 1 safety pin at the bottom and 1 safety pin at the top, and the one at the bottom operates as a tension wrench.
Okay.
No idea what a tension wrench is.
No idea. But, I mean, I guess you understood the concept of how locks work.
Well, whenever you slip the pins, and you're not thinking about pins at that point. I don't think, I mean, you are and you aren't. You don't have a word for it. But there's pins that obviously are coming down from the top to keep the cylinder from turning.
Okay.
You know that as you free those pins, at least at the beginning, and I was intuitively understanding this, when that goes up, right, you want to make sure that because you are essentially... I was using a technique that's like raking. I believe that I'm not into physical security primarily, though I use it when necessary. So I don't have the terminology down, but I was basically raking, which is essentially, rather than setting each pin up individually, I was just doing this, hopefully to get the pins to go up and jam, because that's what you want when you're picking a lock. You want the pin to go up and jam. So it's basically outside. It's what the key would do. The key would basically push that pin out of the way, all of them, so the cylinder would turn. I'm basically, when you're setting it, doing it the right way. You're supposed to be pushing each pin up and jamming it up there. I was raking. I was essentially trying to get them all to kind of just, by chance, just brute forcing it, getting ones to jam up there. So I'm raking it like that. And when that finally, they all set up like that, you want to make sure that it turns immediately, because you don't want it to just happen to fall back down. And then the lock won't turn. You can't open. So you have a tension wrench basically to put tension on that turn. So as soon as they line up, it's gonna turn. And then the pins, they can't engage anymore because there's no longer any holes. So the tension wrench basically does that. It's basically make sure it's going to turn immediately. And meanwhile, I got the other safety pin up there doing this. I don't know what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just doing what seems. Maybe I saw a movie. I don't know, but. It just turns, and then you got it. And you just take the 2 safety pins, and you come around. Now I have lock picks, but...
Okay.
That was a lot. Sorry.
All right. So my last question for you today is, what advice would you give to organizations looking to improve their overall cybersecurity posture? Or at least, where can they start?
There's actually 4 key concepts that I have, and I actually distilled them down for today. One is threat modeling, which is understand your problem. Okay. Like if you're buying a firewall, if you're buying what is now called the next generation firewall, which is essentially all the bells and whistles, anti-spam, antivirus, intrusion prevention, and that gets rolled up right into that firewall. It's called the next-gen firewall. These features, endpoint protection, secure access, secure edge. And these names you may not know what they are, but they're all different solutions. They all have different things to do, and you have to know what you're trying to do with it. You have to understand your problem. All right, and understand your problem. You do threat modeling. Like, what if someone is going to come at us? Who would? What would they do? Right? Understand, because they are your problem. The black cat is your problem. Mm-hmm. Even someone who's committing traditional fraud, financial fraud. They're trying to steal from you. How are they doing it? That's your problem. How are them doing that, and how do they do it? The next thing in the use cases. So how do we then find out or know when someone's doing that? The third thing was check your assumptions, right? If you get hacked, I would say it's not necessarily because, you did anything wrong, or, your people made a mistake and didn't try hard enough, or your team's not good enough. It's just the fact that you've made a mistake, right? You make lots of assumptions about what you're doing because you have to be able to do your job. You can't check everything all the time. You can't look up everything and I make the assumption that it's not going to be raining before I go out, based on a general understanding of my time here today. I'm going to assume that. I'm going to assume my team deployed that firewall or deployed that solution, endpoint protection, or the digital banking or mobile banking securely. But you have to go back later, and especially for the important things, check your assumptions, because you're going to be wrong sometime, and you're going to be wrong big. And you want to basically have someone check those assumptions. And penetration testing from the protection side, identification protection side, allows you to check your assumption. Make sure you're right. The things yes, they did a good job. Yes, that was the appropriate control. Adversary emulation, you can look these things up if you don't necessarily know that term.
Yeah.
And that's works more on the detect and respond side. Mm-hmm. Did we train our people properly? Well, it goes back to use case. Are our use cases correct? Did we see anything? Right? Do our people trained properly? Do they have the proper tools to respond? And so all checking your assumptions. I assume we did. Good job, but we need to check that with all that. And the last thing is practice. Practice. More if you're going to have an instant response, do more than, because you'll do that. You'll go through and you'll go ahead and you'll have something like, they say, a sensor will go off and you'll get an alert, and it's obviously one that you've created, and you'll see if the people are, what do they do, right? Which is more traditional rather than adversary emulation. Do something more than tabletop exercises. Don't just read through it. Have someone, do a network scan. Have someone launch an exploit, even if you know it's going to fail. See what happens. Have people run into the office at 2 a.m. after seeing it. Come on the weekend. Actually go through the process. A good example of that on a disaster recovery side is supposedly you're supposed to have like 2 firewalls, and I keep using firewalls, which there's so much more to security than that. But let's say it's, power supply. Let's say you've got power for all of your systems. You have a backup, presumably. Just don't check that off. Don't do like a tabletop. If the power goes out, then we turn this on and we do that. Can you pull the plug? Pull the plug. The other power supply should kick on.
All right.
That's how you do it.
That is how you do it.
Until then, you're just,
Yeah.
you're just guessing that it's going to go on. You gotta practice. You gotta go through everything that you would normally do for a genuine event.
Okay. Well, Gregory, those are all the questions I had for you today. But I would like to thank you very much for taking the time and coming on the podcast and answering all my questions, even my silly ones. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.